What's going on, guys? Ben from JK Gear and Gadgets, and welcome back to another episode of the JK 1-ton swap video series. Now, over the past weekend, I actually went ahead and put the 14-bolt axle underneath the Jeep. Let's check it out. I didn't make a video on it because honestly, it was so easy to install. Using the Barnes 4-wheel drive swap truss kit, everything lined right up. Our old springs, shocks, track bar, control arms, everything went in super easy. But it's time to actually talk about what little things we have to do to make these axles happy underneath our Jeep. So I made a list right here of all the topics we're going to talk about in this video, and this is almost going to wrap it up for this 1-ton swap. A few more things left, but this video series is coming to an end. So in this video, we're going to talk about brakes. Not only just brake pads, rotors, and calipers, but also the master cylinder and brake booster. These axles have huge dual piston calipers, so we have to upgrade our master cylinder in order to push out enough fluid to fill and stop these brakes. Now, we're also going to talk about wheel speed sensors, ABS, all that stuff to make the computer happy on the Jeep, so it's not going into limp mode, doing funky shifts, all that stuff. We're also going to talk about wheel selection when it comes to 8-lug wheels, some things you need to look out for when you're doing this swap. We're going to talk about the app in order to change our wheel speed sensor teeth count, all that stuff, change our tire size and our new gear ratio. I'm going to show you how to assemble a 14-bolt hub. Very simple, just a few steps to it. And the last thing is how we are going to change bolt pattern from the rear to match the front. Front's from a Ford Dana 60, so that's 8 on 170, and since the rear is from a Chevy, that's 8 on 6.5. So I'm going to talk about how I'm going to switch that and make it happy, and some other possible ways to get around the mismatched bolt pattern. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Sit back, it's gonna be a lot of stuff. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is brake upgrades for this axle swap. Our new axles have dual pistons, huge calipers, and our old brake booster and old brake setup isn't going to cut it with these big axles. So the first thing we're going to talk about is upgrading our master cylinder and brake booster. Now, the kit you want to get, that rhymed, is from the J8. It's a military style Jeep that they made. And in that Jeep, they upgraded the master cylinder and booster for the bigger brakes and bigger axles. Now, this kit right now, currently, since I'm making this video, is on national back order. I lucked out. Globex Performance up in New Jersey, I think, had one sitting on their shelf. So called them up, ordered it, and that's the last one they have. I'm sure there's more shops selling these, and they will eventually get caught back up on orders, and these will be available again. However, there's a lot of different sites you can go on, you know, kind of pre-order one, wait for it to get back in stock. And this is not the first time they've been on national back order. They sell them all, make more, and then they start selling them again. But what I will say is that if you are planning to do this swap, if they're in stock, go ahead and pick one up. I'll put the part number in the description for this, so you can start looking for it and whatnot. But pretty much the reason behind this is so we can push more fluid to fill our bigger dual piston calipers. And this is a pretty common swap when you're doing a big brake upgrade and whatnot. So keep an eye out for that, anywhere from $200 to $300. I am not going to install this yet until the axles are under the Jeep. I want to go for a test drive without the brake booster and master cylinder, see how it does, put this in, and then see the performance game, so I can kind of do a good review on that. Now, what else are we, what do we have here? I went with the Power Stop full kit. Got the slotted and drilled rotors, their calipers, as well as their Z36 brake pads. Now, why did I go with, you know, kind of an aftermarket and not OEM brake setup? The big reason behind that was because, well, first of all, my old 14-bolt axle that I got from the guy who pulled it from the junkyard, it did not have any brakes at all. It was just the housing and hubs. So right off the bat, I had to go with something for the rear. I was gonna stick with, you know, just standard OEM calipers and brakes and all that stuff, but I figured now is a good time to upgrade. I've heard great reviews from people that run these on the JK, as well as these trucks that these axles are under, say these do phenomenal. The great upgrade opposed to stock. So I know a lot of people are worried about drilled and slotted rotors. I've never really seen a big issue with them. If you're really big into mudding and everything, or, you know, hang out in the dunes a lot, it might be a small issue, but for me, no biggie. I'd rather have the performance of the drilled and slotted rotors. Now, the calipers come powder coated red. That's pretty sweet. Brand new or refurbished calipers. and their brake pads are phenomenal. So this is for the rear. Got that kit from the Chevy 2500 HD, and I went ahead and replaced everything in the front as well. You can see the power stop rotor and caliper hanging out under the wheel. So it's not a necessary upgrade to go with the power stop kit, but for a few $100 extra, I figured it's worth it. I mean, they look cooler. I think they're gonna perform a lot better, especially paired with this master cylinder. And with these heavy axles under the Jeep, I want the best stopping power I can get. So brakes, that's pretty much it. There's nothing crazy to it. The power stop brakes do require a break-in period, and I talked about that in my last video, but it's nothing crazy. So if you have the extra money, I would highly recommend going with the power stop kit. And the J8 kit is almost, you kind of have to do it, but we'll see once we have this axle in and everything's good to go on the road. We'll do a test drive without the brake booster. One thing to note when it comes to brakes, pretty much all the kits you're gonna find, you will have to buy your own brake caliper bolts, because most kits are assuming it's going back into an OEM axle. So found those on Amazon. I'll throw the link in the description. And as well as the banjo bolt. Went up to Napa and they had one in stock for the truck, and the kit did come with new washers, but I did have to buy the banjo bolt. I'll try to find a part number and throw that in the description. But the good news is that our old brake lines are going to work for the front and rear. Now when it comes to brake lines, let's talk about another topic. The caliper on the 14 bolt actually sits in front of the axle, opposed to the JK where it sat behind it. So in order to do that, we had to reroute our brake line. Normally on the JKs, the brake line is attached right here and goes straight down. So the simple way to do that, or to fix this issue, is take it off the bracket there. There's already a hole in the frame here. I drilled it, tapped it, put a bolt through my little brake line extension. You don't have to use an extension, you could use your old bracket right here. I tucked the old brake cable or brake line up behind my fender in there, and now it runs down right through here. I still have my old caliper attached, so we're not draining out a bunch of brake fluid until we are ready to actually bolt it up and swap our lines over. But that's a real easy fix. Just tuck your brake line under, drill and tap, and put a new bolt right there, and that's gonna solve that issue. Let's go ahead and talk about wheel speed sensors. It's everybody's favorite question when it comes to this swap. They wonder, how do I make the computer happy? Don't want it to go into limp mode, and I don't want all those Christmas tree lights. Luckily, it's really not that hard to make the Jeep happy. Up front, all we have to do is get two sensors from a Dodge Ram 2500. I think the years are 2006 to 2008, and it plugs right in. I'll put a part number in the description so you can get the right one. But all we have to do is attach the actual wheel speed sensor into the unit bearing of the Ford, just like we would the JK. And since the Jeep and Dodge are both Mopar, they share the same electrical connection right there. So you plug that in. The only issue is that the Ford uses a 60-tooth tone ring in order to send the signal up to the computer, whereas the Jeep used a 52-tooth. So there is a little bit of a difference there. Your options to make that happy. The most expensive option, which I am not doing, would be to run the Artec Super Bearing. And what that does is replace our Super Duty wheel bearing or hub, and it has a 52-tooth tone ring already inside there. It also solves a few other issues. It comes with the option to run 8 on 170 wheels, the Ford factory pattern, or 8 on 6.5, which would match the rear Chevy. My only issue with running those bearings is the fact that they are extremely expensive. They're $400 a piece. I'm not spending that much money. Secondly is what, I hit the camera. Secondly is what happens if they run out of stock of those unit bearings. They're special order, you can't buy them off the shelf. So if I'm driving halfway across the country and my unit bearing goes bad, what am I gonna do? Call and wait for Artec to send me one, or go to a parts store and get a new unit bearing for a Ford. So personally, I'm not a fan of the Artec unit bearings. It's a great design, a great product, and it is useful for those of you that have a 2012 and up Jeep, where it might be a little more difficult to make the 62 tone rings work. But personally, I am not going that route, because with the iPhone app, OBD Scan, I made a video on that a while ago. The developer actually made an option to change the tooth count in the computer to 60. So it should make the Jeep run a lot better with the 60 tooth, and it won't do a lot of weird codes. I don't know how he did it. I'm not gonna talk too much about it, but it should work perfectly, and I'll be talking about that in a future video if it does work. So the Artec unit bearings are an option, but personally, I don't think they solve that big of an issue, especially being able to convert the factory tooth count in the computer to 60. But we'll talk about that more later. It's time to take a look at the rear axle and the wheel speed situation back there. So the 14-bolt axle did not come factory with any tone rings on it. If you're doing the Ford Sterling swap from the Super Duty, they did have a tone ring on the actual, like beside the ring gear. You can't use that either. So what we have to do is actually remove the hub from the axle, order some tone rings from Artec. They're, I think, the only vendor that actually makes and sell these. And we are, of course, just like the front, decide if we want to go with 60 tooth or 52. So personally, I'm sticking with 60 tooth. It makes it a little cheaper and easier, especially with the Jeep phone app. The programmer and everything, already did the video on that, and it'll allow us to run the 60 tooth without any issue. So what you're gonna have to do is take off your hub from your axle. This is actually from my old Sterling axle back in the day when I planned on doing this swap. I had already sent this out and had the tone ring, you know, machined and pressed on. You're gonna take this to a machine shop and have them turn down our hub just a little bit so we can press on our tone ring. Have them press it on to make sure everything fits, and then hit it with some green Loctite to really make sure it's on there, not going anywhere. I already paid for 2 sets of these to get pressed on. I didn't really want to pay again for the 14-bolt hub, so I did it at home myself. I used a Dremel to turn down our hub just a little bit, and then I finished off the rest on our actual tone ring. I'd rather take more off the tone ring because we can order more of these. Whereas if you take away too much from your hub, you're gonna have to buy a new hub, and that gets expensive. So it works. Personally, I wouldn't recommend it. I would honestly send this off to a machine shop, either locally or online, and have them machine your hub and press this on. But it went pretty good. I went ahead and tack welded it a little bit on the bottom since it wasn't machined down perfectly. You know, I hit it with a Dremel. But we'll see if this works. Hopefully it's not, you know, out of round enough to throw codes. Hopefully it'll pick up a wheel speed, you know, actually pick up the signal and transfer it, but we'll see. Personally, I would not recommend doing the Dremel, but figured I'd try it out and see if it actually works. But what we need to talk about now is, since we actually have the tone ring on the hub now, where is our wheel speed sensor gonna mount? So once again, from Artec, buy it as a kit actually. It comes with the bracket. Very simple on the 14-bolt. You take off these backing plate bolts, the rear two. You're gonna have to cut out a little loop or a little divot from that backing plate and drill a hole in our dust shield big enough to fit our sensor. I messed around with this a lot in order to get our wheel speed sensor to fit. Easiest way to do this is before it's even under the Jeep. Once you're, you know, getting ready to weld your truss on, pull these bolts out, all 4 of them, take off this plate, make that big hole right there, and make that cut right there. I just used a grinder at an angle. I actually did this when it was under the Jeep. Very difficult, but if you get, you know, creative with a burr tool or an angle grinder, you can get in there and grind enough away. Even with the bracket, you might have to make a few changes in order for this to pick up your tone ring. Personally, I had to put a washer here, right there behind the bolt, so it would actually receive a signal. But let me show you how to check and see if you're receiving a signal and if your spacing is good between your wheel speed sensor and the pressed on tone ring. So let's hop out real quick, and we're gonna use the JScan app. All right, so what we're gonna do now is actually make sure that our gap on the wheel speed sensor and tone ring is good enough and make sure we are actually receiving a signal. So we are using the OBD JScan app. I did a video on this a while back. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, go watch the video. I'll throw a link in the video description to this video or to the old programmer app video, so you can see what you're gonna need to purchase in order to use this. But what we're gonna do is plug in our Bluetooth scanner, turn our key on, and we're gonna come over here to modules. We're gonna go to anti-lock brakes, let this load. This is pretty much like a mini little Chrysler scanner tool. It's freaking awesome. The app is $16 for each VIN, and then the scanner's $20, so it's really cheap. Let me show you. I just went to, so we're in the anti-lock brake module. We're gonna go to live data, press this little bottom dot right here. We're gonna scroll down to wheel speed. We're gonna do left front, left rear, and right rear and right front. Press OK. We're gonna go up here to boxes and press the play button. And as you can tell, it's pulling up zeros. Nothing's moving. So we can actually jack up the Jeep and turn each wheel and see if our wheel speed sensor is working. Already did it on the front and those are working perfectly, but since we just set up, or if you are setting up your rear wheel speed sensor, you might have to make adjustments, and this app makes it really easy to see if it's working before, you know, actually going for a test drive. So we're looking at wheel speed right rear. What I'm gonna do is spin this with my hand and make sure we're actually getting a reading. So as you can tell, 2 miles an hour, spinning a little faster, 5 miles an hour. What you're really gonna wanna make sure you do is be able to turn this at a steady rate without stopping and making sure it's a constant number. So I'm gonna try to do that one-handed. Let's see. There we go. 1, 1, 1, 2. Yep, sped up a little bit. What we're checking right there, if you machine the hub and have it pressed on, you don't have to worry about fluctuations. But me, since I use the grinder or Dremel and push it on, I really wanted to make sure that there weren't certain portions of the wheel speed sensor that wasn't reading. But we are good to go, and this is a great way to really set that the depth is by using this tool, and it's very easy to make sure your wheel speed sensors are working. But since we're here, let's go ahead and talk about how to actually change it to work with the 60-tooth tone rings. What we're gonna do is go all the way back. We're not gonna disconnect. No, we're gonna go to adaptation, and right here, ABS front tone wheel teeth count. As you can tell right now, the ECU has it stored as 52. We're gonna click down here and go to 60 and change it, and you would press go. I'm not gonna change it yet because we're not at that point. And of course we have the rear right here. This app is also gonna let us change our gear ratio. So we're gonna put 5/38 in there. We'd be able to change that here, as well as our tire size if you're changing tire size. So this app pays for itself immediately. Definitely gonna need this if you plan on running 60-tooth tone rings for the front and rear, especially if your Jeep is 2012 or newer. It's very picky. Pick up the app, it's worth it, and it does a lot of other awesome things too. So let's move on to the next one. Next up, it's time to talk about wheel selection. So since we're moving to 8-lug wheels, we have to get new wheels. Now is the time to go ahead and invest in some nice bead locks if you haven't. The problem arises because the rear axle is a different bolt pattern than the front. But also the rear axle is 3 inches narrower than the front. So either way, we're gonna either have to run 1.5 inch spacers on both sides, or 1.5 inch spacers / adapters to change it to the front bolt pattern. So the easiest way to do it is to run the spacer adapters. Most kits come with 4. I'll include a link in the video description to a set of 4. You can get them on Amazon, about $100 for all 4. So you can find somebody else who's doing the swap to sell them the other 2. Now, a lot of people hate using spacers, but if you maintain them, you use Loctite and torque them down, you know, a few times a year, you'll have no issue. There are hundreds of people running this swap with these spacers, especially the fact that they're 8-lug. Your chances of failure are a lot less than running, you know, a 4-lug spacer or a 5-lug spacer. So this is gonna make it a lot easier to run the same bolt pattern, and personally, I'm sticking to the 8-on-170. Now, what wheels did I go with? I went with the Vision bead locks. So these are from Vision Wheel, 8-lug, and the backspacing is 4, I think 4 1/4, which is perfect for this swap. The lower number backspace, the more the tire and wheels stick out from the Jeep. But the problem is, if you run like a 5-inch backspace, they're gonna be too close to the Jeep and might rub some of your steering components. And personally, with the Barnes 4-wheel drive high steer kit, 4.5 inch backspacing is the minimum. So 4 1/4 is gonna work perfect for me without sticking the tires too far out from the Jeep. As you can tell, I think that's a good setup. Now, the Vision bead locks are actually pretty affordable. These are right around $450, which I know seems extremely high still. You're like, affordable? That's not affordable. Compared to some of the other 8-lug bead locks on the market, $450 is not bad at all. Some of the other ones get up to the $550 and $600 range. So these are extremely nice wheels. They are polished aluminum, pretty lightweight. There are a few sections in here that are unfinished aluminum, and you can either powder coat them, do like a clear coat or a black, or just leave them how they are. What I did is actually hit them all the way with ceramic coating. So hopefully the this raw aluminum on the inside doesn't start pitting. If it does, I'll take them back off and get them clear coated or powder coated, but we'll see. I really like the look of these wheels. They're lightweight, pretty affordable, and I just think they look amazing. So I still have to show you guys a video on how to install the monster valves, because that's something else I did to these wheels, help them air down and air up a lot quicker. But wheels, I would definitely recommend checking out the Visions. They're pretty new to the market. It's a new growing brand, especially towards the off-road side, and I'm very impressed with them so far. But with this combo and the wheel spacers, adapters, it's going to put both axles at the same width, the same bolt pattern, and we should be good to go. All right, I've done enough talking. We're going to go ahead and show you how to set up our parking brake assembly, as well as how to install our hub and torque down this nut. So we're going to grab our parking brake assembly, all the shoes and everything, and what we're going to have to do is grind out the inside of these shoes about 1/4 inch all the way around on both sides. That's so once we have this installed, we can install the hub with our new tone ring on without hitting these parking brake shoes. It makes it a lot easier. So we're going to grab the spring and install it on the side with 2 little divots up here. Slide that right in, twist it. I always forget which way these things go. Nope. You have to start the opposite way that you would think. It's very annoying. Just like that. So we got one side in. We're gonna push this little tab right up in there. We're gonna grab our backing plate pin, put that through the backing plate and through our shoe. Grab our little pin plate, and I'm gonna go ahead and say there's a lot of other YouTube videos, you know, full video dedicated on how to do this. So if you're having any issues, definitely check out, you know, another channel that actually, you know, does installs on brakes and stuff on Chevys. They might have some more tips and tricks, but it's pretty simple. Throw that in, we're gonna twist it up right there. All right, that's good to go. Still got our spring in there. Push that back down into place. And of course it popped out, to my luck. Reinstall the spring. Let's get this side installed. And we're gonna have to really pull it over. Oh, just like that. And that doesn't really look right. That's not right. I think the spring is supposed to go on the top side. All right, well, I guess I was right. I don't know, this just looked really weird, but all the pictures look just like this. So throw this pin in there now. I don't know, it just looks really weird with the spring at the angle like that. Who knows? It's from a Chevy, that's all I can say. It'd be very nice once again to have a second hand. But line this up. Oh, et voila. Man, that's tricky. Very tricky. We're gonna get our little adjuster, put a good amount of grease on that, put that on here at the bottom. Make sure you line it up closer to the adjuster port down here, that little plug, so we can adjust it later on down the road. Last but not least, grab our little spring here and attach that on the bottom side. One little piece of advice: since we have the swap truss kit welded on there, it's hard to get under here with everything assembled and actually, you know, turn this adjuster. So with everything off, go ahead and adjust it, grab our rotor, and we can make our adjustments a little bit at a time until we feel a little bit of resistance on our rotor. That way we don't have to come back and change this once everything's buttoned up. So I'm gonna expand it out until our rotor is nice and tight going on there with a little bit of resistance. All right, now it's time to actually install the hub. What we're gonna do is grab a screwdriver, take this little snap lock ring off, grab our magnet, pull out the pin, and loosen our hub nut. You're gonna need the hub tool designed for a 14 bolt. I'll put in the video description. All of them suck, and you have to file down all the little sprockets to fit in here. I've never found a good one. So with all that off, we are gonna wipe all this down. A little bit of crud on there. If it's rusty at all, get some emery cloth, wipe it down. But what we're gonna do is grab our hub with our tone ring on and a new seal installed. We are gonna push this up in there. Try to avoid all these springs. All right, what we're gonna do now is grab our nut. Go ahead and thread it on. We're gonna grab our hub tool, and as you can tell, it has the little sprockets on there. It's part number PTW1270. I'll throw a link in the description for it. And we are going to start tightening down this hub. Now this is a pretty special process. We are going to have to tighten it while spinning the hub the opposite way. You can do the majority of this hand tight. It's really important not to mess up this step, because it's really important to make sure we have this hub preloaded the correct way. And we're gonna keep tightening this and turning it until it's nice and snug. We don't wanna go above 50 foot-pounds. We're gonna have to break out the torque wrench here in a minute. But what this is doing is seating those bearings and this hub onto the spindle. Once we start getting some resistance on that nut, and this is still free spinning, it's time to break out the torque wrench. We gotta set our torque wrench to 50 foot-pounds. It's kind of hard to do this because this tool sucks and likes to hop out of the little sockets. But what we're gonna do is try to torque this down to 50 foot-pounds, and it'd be really helpful to have a second hand here spinning it, but it's not completely necessary. So push this in there and torque it to 50 foot-pounds. Right there, we're at 50 foot-pounds, and we should still be able to break it and turn it. What we're gonna do now is go ahead and loosen it. We're gonna give it a few good spins. And now we're gonna tighten it back up once again to 50 foot-pounds. All right, torqued it up to 50 foot-pounds once again. Spin it, and we're gonna break it loose one more time. All right. Now, with that loose, we should be able to spin it without too much resistance. And what we're gonna do now is line up the slots. Let me grab the GoPro. We are gonna turn it, we're gonna loosen it until this slot lines up with here. About a quarter of a turn, if that. A little bit more. And this is why when you disassemble this hub, you probably noticed that this was almost hand tight. And that's because you tighten it to seat the hub and bearings on the spindle, but then you want to loosen it a little bit so it doesn't have too much preload. A little bit more we can probably adjust with a screwdriver. Right there, cool. And just like that, we should be able to spin our hub pretty good, and it shouldn't have any end play. What we're gonna do now is reinsert our little magnet tab all the way in there, so this can't back off or loosen, and install this last piece. This little spring-loaded, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know the technical name either. Push it all the way on. And our hub is properly installed. At this point, it's time to check and make sure that this wheel speed sensor and tone ring are meshing up good enough and reading. So I'm gonna grab my phone. Once again, we're gonna use that app. Plug in our scanner up there. Go back, and boxes. Go down here to our wheel speed sensor, left rear, okay. We're gonna press play for it to load. One thing I've noticed is that it kind of freezes on this screen if you're not using it for a few minutes. So every few minutes, if you're not getting a reading, go back and start over to get to this screen. So what we're gonna do now is make sure our wheel speed sensor is plugged in and bolted down to our bracket, and we are gonna spin this. And as you can tell, it is working. It's definitely not nice and smooth because I'm just turning it by hand, but we can tell that our wheel speed sensor is reading. Now, if you're doing this and it's not picking up anything, make sure it's plugged in. Make sure you have a good wheel speed sensor. And last off, if everything else is fine and it's not reading, what you can do is make sure that this wheel speed sensor is actually sitting evenly on the bracket. What you can do if you're still not picking up anything is undo this bolt and kind of manually hold the wheel speed sensor in at different angles to pick up on the tone ring. Sometimes it needs to be closer or further away. And the only way to really adjust that is by drilling out this backing plate a little bit more and grinding away right here. You can also take away a little bit on the inside of the wheel speed sensor. You can cut that so it mounts up a little closer to the tone ring. It's really not that hard to set up, but if you grind away enough of your backing plate and your dust shield using the RTEC bracket, it should put your tone ring close enough. If you do need to angle it a little bit, use a few washers, but we are good here. It is time to go ahead and put on our rotor and caliper. Grab our new power stop caliper. It's really important when you're setting up these calipers to make sure that you get the correct side. The bleeder screw, which is up here, should always be on top. If you mount this caliper so the bleeding screw's on the bottom, you will never get it bled. The air bubbles will be trapped in there. Now, I already went ahead and installed our pads. Went with the Z36 performance pads. They worked really good up front, so I'm excited to see how they perform in the rear. What we're gonna do, just like any other rotor job, slide this on here and get the bolt started. Depending on your control arms, you might have to remove your rear upper to get access to this caliper bolt. In my case, I don't have to, but if you're running an arm with a really big jam nut, it's gonna be in the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and torque these down nice and tight. These bolts already had a little bit of pre-Loctite on them. If they don't, make sure to put some blue Loctite on all your caliper bolts. All right, it's time to go ahead and swap over the calipers. So what I'm gonna do is route the brake line underneath our upper and above our lower. So went ahead and removed our new banjo bolt, have both of our washers. We are gonna go ahead and break our brake line off. Let's see, it's always hard. I'm gonna use the impact to make it easy. We're gonna wanna make this swap pretty quick so we don't lose too much brake fluid and introduce too much air into the system. All right, go ahead and let our caliper fall free. Remove our old banjo bolt and washer. All right. Now, how this is gonna work, we're gonna put that banjo bolt and washer on, put our new one on, and I'll show you guys here in a minute, but we are gonna have to bend our brake line, the little hard portion at the bottom. We're gonna have to put a little bend in it so it fits fine. Show you what I'm talking about. Reinstall our bleeder screw. And once we do this, we need to make sure we top off our reservoir, because this is gonna slowly fill up this brake caliper. And we don't wanna run out of brake fluid in our master cylinder. All right, so let me show you how I routed this and what I was talking about. So when we put our old brake line on, normally it is sideways like this with the angle going up. There's only so much room in here on this caliper, and with it mounted sideways like that, it won't sit flush on the caliper. You could modify the caliper to fit, but honestly, having it angled like this is perfectly fine. What we are gonna do is bend this bracket so it goes up. These brake lines, you don't wanna pinch this curve and you don't wanna bend it too many times. So we just wanna make sure it's free of this lower control arm and only bending it as much as we need to. So I'm gonna get a little rubber mallet, hit it a few times, or kind of pry it over just so it's free of our lower control arm. Want to make sure that this down here, this little loop, isn't starting to kink or break, but I would like to bend it just a little bit more. So let's see what happens. Can't really hit it from this angle. Nope, we're gonna have to stick to prying it. I'm gonna have to set the GoPro down, I think. All right, that's as much as I'm really comfortable bending it before I think it'll start to kink. But how this is set up now, we shouldn't have any issues. Should have plenty of brake line for down travel. It's not going to get pinched between the upper and lower control arm, and the upper control arm is not going to hit this. So we're good to go. Now that we have the power stop brakes on, it's time to install our wheel spacer. But let me show you something. Since we're only running 1.5 inches, if we install these spacers just how they are, you can see that the old studs protrude out. Most wheels, we're gonna have to cut this stud. But let me show you something to check. If your wheel has little holes on the inside, this one does not. Some wheels have holes or little cutouts machined right here, so you won't have to trim your studs. Now, I don't have those on my wheels. A lot of wheels don't, but it's really easy to go ahead and trim these studs. On the 14 bolt, we're not gonna have to worry about the threads getting messed up, because as you can tell, the threads haven't even started yet on the section we need to cut. So I need to cut about half of this little, I don't know what you want to call it, but before it actually gets to the threads, we're gonna cut that off with our grinding wheel. So let's cut them all off and install our new spacer. Get a more comfortable chair. Now that we have the studs cut, we can go ahead and install our new wheel spacer. It's important to at least use blue or red Loctite on the studs so we don't have to worry about this spacer getting loose over time. And now we can go ahead and install our axle shaft. Now the great thing about full float axle shafts is that we can have our tire and wheel right on right now, and it doesn't bolt to the axle shaft. So if we ever break this, we can pull our axle shaft out, stuff this with rags, and still drive home with a broken rear axle shaft by just pulling it out. So I'm going to slide this bad boy in. There is a gasket right here that's supposed to go between the actual flange and the hub. Mine broke, as you can tell. Really no big deal. It'll seal up fine when we bolt it on. But if yours isn't ripped, make sure you put that gasket on first, otherwise you're not going to be able to get it on. But since mine's ripped, I'll just be able to snake it under there later. So what we're going to do is try to get the splines lined up into our locker. There we go. Twist our hub to align that and start a few bolts. These bolts need to be torqued to 115 foot-pounds. Really no way to do that until the tires are back under the Jeep so we can actually torque them down. One thing I really like about these new wheels is they're a lot lighter than my old race lines. So they are extremely light, which is going to help cut down on some of that rotating mass, which is really going to be nice with these heavy axles. So let's go ahead and zap on our new lug nuts. Went ahead and got these on Amazon. They're cheap little chrome lug nuts. I'll put a link in the description. Front Ford Super Duty lug nut thread is M14 by 1.5. So our rear spacers need to match that too. M14 1.5 lug nuts work perfectly. Wheels and tires are mounted. All we have left to do is air up and seat the inner bead on our bead lock. So we got the power tank ready to go. Got our monster valve right there, and of course our gauge right here showing 0 PSI. Let's do it. There we go. Looks like it's seating the bead, starting to fill up. Close that. There we go. All right, let's watch this baby climb. I'm sure my power tank's probably running low. I've done these, let's see, I did Cassie's Jeep, done these tires before in the past, so I'm probably gonna go ahead and fill up the power tank sometime soon before I hit the trails. A good way to know how much is left in there is weigh it. So this is a 15-pound CO2 bottle. We weighed it before we actually filled it, and it's on the tank itself. So we can see how much more agent is in there. But it's still pumping this up fast. We're almost up to 30. We're at 24. Still got a little bit more to go. But the monster valve really lets this thing air up fast. And like I've said before, I am doing a video. I'm going to show you guys how to install these, and we'll show you how fast this thing air down. It's insane. It's like matter of seconds we're down to wheeling. All right. And we are at pretty much 30. Go ahead and pop that off. And we are good to go. It's finally time to go ahead and take the jack stands off and let the Jeep sit on its own weight. The axles are pretty much done. Still a few more things to wrap up. Got to order drive shafts. Got to fill the rear diff with gear oil and bleed the rear brakes and take it for a test drive. But let's see how it looks sitting on its own weight. Holy crap, this is sick. So it looks like everything's lined up pretty good. Got the track bar straight, and man, she is wide. But dude, that looks so sick, so beefy. Man, this looks amazing. Those Vision wheels just make the Jeep pop. Holy crap, this is awesome. One thing I already noticed is that the front is sitting higher than the rear, and that's just because the swap truss kit in the front, the way the spring pads are located on top of the axle truss, it makes it sit a little higher. So eventually I'll swap down in coil size. So that's one thing to note for you guys. If you don't already have a lift kit and you're doing this swap, go about 1 inch lower than you want to be. So, you know, I like being at 4.5 inch lift. I need to order 3.5 inch coils. And I still need to fix how this spring is sitting up here in the coil bucket. It's offset and it's kind of lifting this side a little higher. So I have a little bit of a lean to it, but I'll fix that when I go to swap the new springs in. But holy crap, dude, it's a new Jeep. Oh, so I've been really excited about this swap for a long time. I've been planning it out for a long time, and luckily I kind of blasted through it fairly quick. My recommendation for you guys, if you are gonna do this swap, take your time, don't rush yourself, and you know, spread it out over a while. My reason to do it pretty quick was to make videos for you guys, but this is awesome. Ordered drive shafts from Adam's Drive Shafts, yesterday, and they're supposed to be here. I ordered them on Friday or Thursday, so they said it takes 3 to 4 days to get to me. So that's the great thing about Adam's, is they build them and ship them out fast. So I wish I would have ordered them on a Monday so I could have got it by a Friday, but the weekend doesn't count. So we'll be doing the install video on Adam's Drive Shafts, 1350 front and rear, custom built to the exact length for this Jeep. So that's awesome. And we'll talk about how to measure all that stuff and how to install the drive shafts. But the Jeep is on its own weight. Hopefully this video gave you guys you know, some good tips and tricks on the ABS, brakes, wheels, all that stuff. And we'll revisit it in the future video. So once I have the drive shafts under, we're gonna take it for a test drive, make sure everything is good to go. And if it is, we're gonna do a video, like a final summary video, talk about, you know, would I recommend this swap? How much did it cost me total out the door for everything? And there's a lot of variables. Not everybody has a welder, so they might have to pay their buddy to weld, or they might have to go buy a welder from Harbor Freight. If you do that, at least get one that is set up for gas. You'll have to go buy a bottle and get some welding gas, but it makes the welds a lot stronger and a lot prettier. But if you have any questions, like always, I'm more than happy to answer them. Throw them in the comments. I read all the whole, you know, I pretty much try to respond to every question that's left in the comments. But, oh, this looks so good, and honestly, totally worth it. So, thanks for watching, guys. And like always, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and stay tuned for future videos. Peace.